One question has stressed the human mind like no other. What happens when we die? What happens when you die? Religions have come up with all manner of answers. Some answers have been offered to comfort people. Some have been offered in attempts to control people. Some have been offered in attempts to exploit people. The answers are many. A great number of them contradict each other, clearly indicating that many of them must be wrong. The issue with the vast majority of the explanations of what happens when you die is that there is no evidence behind them. They are irrational and have no supporting evidence. All the religious explanations that I have heard fit into this category. But what is the most rational answer that we can arrive at? What explanation makes the most sense? We can't really know for sure, but some answers seem a lot more rational than others. I think one answer stands out as more rational than all others. The best way to come to conclusions is through a mixture of consideration of empirical evidence as well as rational inquiry. To say this is to skip the whole epistemological debate surrounding these things, but we can't cover everything in one video. We know from our own experiences and the shared experiences of others that before life there is nothing, just pure unconsciousness, like a deep sleep. This is what we know about non-aliveness from our experiences. It seems rational to expect the same thing to occur on the other side. We already know what it is like to be not alive before life, so that should give us a fairly good idea of what it is like to be not alive after life. This seems like the most rational answer. Death is just like what you had before life, pure unconsciousness, like a very deep sleep. I can't remember who it was, but someone once said something like, "To imagine what it is like to be dead, just think of the year 1820. This is a good quote, as it highlights the fact that not being alive is nothing new. We have all experienced it before life, and in a sense every night when we sleep. Not aliveness is just complete unconsciousness. The actual experience, or lack of experience I should say, is equal to what we get when we sleep each night. The only difference with death is firstly that it is eternal, or at least it seems to be, and secondly that we have adapted to be terrified of it. This is not because being absolutely terrified of death is logical, but because we would be dead if we didn't fear it so much. The fear of death is the consequence of natural selection, plain and simple. Such a fear is the burden, or arguably the blessing, of the survivor. It makes sense because we use our knowledge derived from past experiences, and by past experience I mean a lack of experience, to conclude how non-aliveness feels, and therefore how death must feel. If death is simply a state of not being alive, then we have been dead before. This isn't anything new. You could say death is when you are not alive after being alive. Without getting into the metaphysics of what you are, the only distinction here is in the creation of a new word to describe not being alive after death, rather than not being alive before existence. I find it somewhat comforting to know an endless and eternal rest seems to be more or less guaranteed. We are all guaranteed the same fate in the end. We are all equal in death. You may as well continue the struggle of life because you are going to have to get off the train eventually regardless. Eternal rest is a guarantee, and something to perhaps take some comfort in while navigating the many challenges of existence. You have to get off anyways, so enjoy your time. Death is what you will get in the end regardless. Life, however, is not something to get back. It seems to be a one-time thing, and it cannot get better if it does not continue. It can be incredibly challenging, but it is something to be cherished, and nothing makes this clearer than its short nature and singular guaranteed end. It goes without saying such optimistic rhetoric doesn't help everyone. Some people are of course suffering from mental illness, which is largely irrational and cannot really be appealed to through rational argument for the precious nature of life, and the necessity that it is lived out and enjoyed. Such people must instead seek out the help that will help them to tackle such issues. Life is all we have and all we will ever get, so we may as well try to make the most of the cards we have been dealt. The one-time only nature of life, I think, makes life far more precious and worth living. Less time makes the way in which that time is utilised all the more special and meaningful. There is limited terror induced by the idea that you are gone for good. It would seem that death is eternal. This is the most disturbing part of death and the one thing that separates it from the similar experiences of non-aliveness before life and during sleep. The idea of no more consciousness, no more thinking, is a little unappealing. What you should do is use these things as much as you can in life, so that you have done all you wanted to do with them upon your death, and can die satisfied. Use the things that we lack in death until you are well and truly sick of them. If you do so, death will seem a little more appealing. What matters is making the most of life, living a happy life with meaning and purpose, so that at least you are somewhat ready for the eternal rest when it comes. You want to feel like you have done all you wanted or needed to do before the onset of the rest. To die without regret is the objective of life.